Hi there, it's James here. I'm inside today. As you can see, this is right at the back of the boat. I'll give you a tiny little look round so you can see. That's the back door leading up there. Excuse all the wires. As you saw from my previous video, I haven't got the components to finish the wiring yet, so there's some books up there. And this is a video I'm going to do on pets. Pets on the boat. So let's. You can see. There's here Booby. Yes, he's a big fella. He's a lovely chap, very gentle. So, right. Sorry, excuse me. And put that back. So, okay. Sorry. So, that's really not very good. Let's see if I can. I do apologise. Need some more professional equipment, but in keeping with my sort of simple, sort of basic living kind of thing, I don't really want to just go out and buy a tripod or something just so that I can. Well, anyway, you know the idea. So, okay, a couple of things about animals on the boat. So we have 4 cats. I did have 2 dogs. 2 border collies a couple of months ago. Sadly, they passed away because they got a dog version of cholera. They're both 16 years old. I'd had them since they were tiny, and yeah, it was too much for them in their elderly condition, and they unfortunately didn't make it. So I do know something about. I had dogs on the boat for about 6 months. They were elderly dogs, so they were much more of a handful than you might normally expect. Interesting things to note about dogs on the boat is that sometimes, because they're elderly dogs, they might, wee in the boat at night. You might not have that problem with your dogs. That's more of an issue than it might be in a house, because the floor of the boat is wooden, and it's not so easy to clean. So because the dog's very elderly, we had to put towels and things for them a lot. The other thing is, boats are quite small and narrow, so when the dogs are going up and down the boat, it is quite a confined space, especially with 4 cats as well, so that's something to think about. But oddly enough, probably the most tricky thing about dogs on the boat is carrying them on and off. Due to the structure of our boat, I had to, every time they wanted to go off the boat, I had to physically lift them up. And they were quite solidly built collies, with the big chest, and yeah, they weighed about 25 kilos or something. So carrying him on and off the boat repeatedly, many times a day, over these big steps, because the way the boat is configured, you have to take a large step out of the cratch and then sort of drop down with a thud onto the towpath. You do that lots and lots of times a day. It really does start to wear on your knees, and it's not really terribly great for them. Which, oddly enough, of all the things to do with dogs on a boat, that was the most tricky thing, carrying them on and off. However, a lot of people have dogs on boats, and you see them shooting around all over the place. They just run up onto the back deck and leap over, onto the towpath, and they have a whale of a time. You see them running along the roofs, and people put baskets on the roof for them. So dogs are very easy on a boat, really, I think. Cats are a little bit different. If you don't want to keep them indoors all the time, and we don't, you do need to let them out. When we move, so every 2 weeks we move, and we find a new spot, which we make sure it's anywhere. We make sure the new spot is nowhere near any roads, and that's quite easy to do on the canal networks in the UK. And so as soon as we open the door, the cats all shoot out, and they go out and they come back just like you're at home, and they remember where the boat is. They just seem to, they're smart things. They all work it out, all 4 of them. There's never been a problem. The only slight problem once was we did park the boat, and then we realised that we were under a tree, and there was no solar power because of the amount of shadow. So I unmoored the boat and dragged it manually about maybe 50 or 60 yards up the towpath, at which point that afternoon I saw the cats all sat 50 yards back down the towpath, stood where the boat was, just looking into the air, sort of going meow, meow, wondering where we were. They had no clue. So I had to go and physically pick them all up and bring them and show them where the boat was. So that's so interesting. They couldn't recognise the boat visually. They couldn't just look up the canal and go, oh, there it is, let's go up there. I think they were following exclusively through scent, so they were very confused. So that's something to bear in mind. Right, I've got a little list here of things that might be interesting. Yeah, our cats fall in the canal. Nothing bad's ever happened. We've had, I think, 7 incidents so far, maybe 6. Yeah, the white one I just showed you, he's fallen in 4 times. Because I think because he's so big and solid, he's a bit clumsy, and so he tends to. He's not as delicate as the girl cats. He's fallen in 4 times. One of the first times I heard the big splash and I ran outside to look, and he was just there swimming like a crocodile. A sort of white crocodile. He just swam down around the edge of the boat, went up to the bank, hauled himself out, and sat there looking extremely sorry for himself. A couple of the other cats have fallen in, and again they've hauled themselves out. I've made a little ramp, like just a piece of board with some notches on it that I've hung on the water side of the boat. So if they were to fall off there would be somewhere that they could quickly get to and climb up. But yeah, from 6 or 7 fall-ins, they've all got themselves out absolutely fine. So I don't think that's a problem. I mean, you have hazards living in a city, don't you? You have, roads and all sorts of things. I mean, one of my cats in the past, it died because somebody changed their cars. I think it was brake fluid. So one of those car fluids, very sweet apparently, and cats like the taste of it. And one of my cats died from where someone got spilt and it drunk it off the floor. So, and that was in a little lane around the back of the house. So, there's hazards everywhere for cats. As a cat owner, I'm sure you're very aware that you just don't have control over them. But I think you just swap one set of potential risks for another on the boat. I don't think it's any more dangerous for the cats, and they do really seem to enjoy themselves. They do occasionally visit other boats, especially the big white one, because he's so bold. But I never had a problem. People seem to think it's quite funny. I think the chance of another boat leaving with your cat on board is quite slim. Microchip them, give them collars with their names on. Mention that he's a boat cat on the collar, so that, because obviously you don't have a proper address and a mobile number. I don't see that that's a problem either. One of the problems of having all the cats like we do running free is that when you move, you do have to make sure all the cats are collected in, and that could be very tricky. If you have a cat flap, which we do have a cat flap on the back door, you can set it to in only, which means that you can slowly gather them in, but they don't really follow much of a routine, and so it can be very awkward to gather them all in order to leave in a prompt manner. Okay, and I think one of the only other things is veterinary care. As I said before, when my dogs got very sick, I was very lucky in that there was a vet just round the corner, maybe a mile away. So I was able to get a taxi and take the dogs to the vet. And the vets were very good as well. They didn't ask, they didn't mind that I didn't have an address. But that is one of the big problems with living on a boat. You don't have an address, and the world is not very well catered. Doesn't cater terribly well to people without addresses. That is something to be aware of. And if you want to buy veterinary products for your cats online, like flea treatments or things like that, you would also, it could be a bit more difficult, because these things are a lot more expensive if you actually buy them from the veterinary centre. You can do a thing called post restant, where you can get your parcels sent to a local post office, and that's very handy. But there's not always a local post office, so there's something to think about. So when you do have access to a delivery address, it's worth stocking up on the supplies that your animals might need. I can't think of much. I think that's about it. On a more amusing side, it is quite funny in the evening. Sometimes you hear the cats, running back and forth across the roof, which is a strange thing. So yeah, I think that's everything. So if you do have any further questions about animals and cats and stuff, please chuck them in the comments and I will attempt to answer them for you. This is the second pet video I did. The first pet video I think I spoke too quietly and it was a bit muted, it was a bit dark, and so I've tried to make this one a little more clear, and I've tried to enunciate better so that you can hear me. Alright, okay, thank you very much for your time. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and yeah, if there's any boaty kind of questions or whatever, just give me a shout. Alright, thank you very much. Bye bye.